got to have your sacred space. You got to have your sacred time. And you have to protect it. You have to protect it with reverence. You got to have emotional boundaries. So this goes both ways, even with racial battle fatigue, right? Because we're dealing with this stuff at work and then we come at home. This is supposed to be sacred space.
In a world where the recruitment of Black educators dominates headlines, one question remains: where are the conversations with folks who are leaving education? Introducing The Exit Interview, a podcast dedicated to archiving the untold stories of Black folks who have departed from traditional education spaces. I'm Dr. Asia Lyons, and I'm embarking on a mission alongside my esteemed guests. Together, we shed light on the challenges, triumphs, and experiences of Black educators, aiming to inform and empower communities invested in understanding the crucial issue of retention in education. Welcome to The Exit Interview, a podcast for Black educators. Welcome back to The Exit Interview, a podcast for Black educators with your host, me, Dr. Asia. This is recording number 2. I've been trying to get Jason Shankle's podcast recorded for a while now. Jason and I have known each other for a long time. His podcast episode, the last one, is gone to the ethers. The ancestors took it up. So we're back to record this episode again months later. Jason, thank you for coming on the show.
Right on. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So you are definitely a different guest than we normally have on the show. And I brought you on because of your work as a therapist, because of your research on racial battle fatigue, and we'll get into all of that. But we want to start off hearing a little bit about yourself. Tell us about you, your education journey. Tell us about your time here in Denver, all the things.
Okay. All right. I'm Jason Shankle. I'm from Denver, the Parkhill area. Education-wise, interesting journey. I started off at an HBCU for 1 year, Texas College, transferred to Sam Houston State at PWI, and then got my bachelor's in marketing and criminal justice, then came back, went to Regis University, got my master's in psychology, and now I'm finishing up my doctorate at the University of Denver in higher education in that final phase right before oral defense, because I've had to take breaks, family first. But yeah, then I'm pretty sure I guess I could jump into it now. Kind of like my topic, my dissertation on destigmatizing Black male therapists through the lens of racial battle fatigue.
Yeah. Go ahead, just jump into it. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So it's interesting. My higher education journey is pretty interesting because, as you know, Regis is a Jesuit university, and then going back to a private PWI university. I taught psychology for 5 years in business as well. Have my private practice. This is the 8th year I'm currently here. One of the main reasons I chose that topic is just, because of my walk. I used to actually be a graduate assistant there as student support coordinator and over the National Penn Hellenic Council. And it's like 1940 on a lot of these campuses.
Tell us about that.
It's like 1940, when you go into these classrooms and the gross attention to the lack of cultural competency. I find that so interesting because the culture of the land, you don't have to, just the thing, there's a language of the land and there's a culture of the land. But when you get on these campuses and they have such gruesome history to it, like Sam Houston, he was a nasty bastard. He was a nasty devil. He was known for raping children and all types of stuff. But, all of this stuff, and Houston is named after Sam Houston. It's just really, really interesting that the history that chases a lot of these places, and even with the history of DU and what they contributed to the Trail of Tears. It is grotesque. With being on these campuses, it feels like it's 1940. I know that if there's some Black educators tuning in that teachers on these campuses or students on these campuses, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You get there and there's this, what the psychology term we like to say is cognitive dissonance. I think that's too nice. It's called selective ignorance. I call that selective ignorance. Just because you're sitting around in your white privilege, you're just going, oh, well, it's all right. It's just like, what makes that all right? How come that's not illness? How come that's not, And then we have all these DEI committees, you know, and the lack of intentionality of not having Black faces or colored people leading those. And the fact that, you know, a lot of these committees, it's like they just go, well, how come I can't be involved? It's like energetic assault. There's just some places that it's just like you should keep your nose out of, right? And if you really want to help, because, you know, you got this empathy in your heart, put your money where your mouth is. Put your money where your mouth is. Fund these programs. There's numerous students that are going, man, how come we don't have classes that's talking about racial battle fatigue? How come we don't have resources that, man, with, you know, when I need a Black male therapist or a Black female therapist, every time I go to the university, it's just Becky sitting there. She's just going, I get it. You know, and and they just go, well, she's a hippie. At least she smokes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's really interesting that you talk about counselors and therapists on campuses and the lack of diversity and people really begging for Black female and male therapists on college campuses. And so the lack of diversity, as we know, is everywhere. And all Black folks don't necessarily want to or can go to an HBCU. And so folks love to say, like, just go to so-and-so, just go to such and such. And that's not for everybody. I want to back up a little bit. And I need you to talk about this term you just used, energetic assault. Can you talk about that a little bit?
That's on my recipe book. You know, I've sat on many, many committees. And what I'm really meaning by that is it's literally like, you know your audience. Like if we're in this room talking about Black issues and you're a white person that wants to sit on the committee because you want to just hear what's going on, it's just like, that is violating the sacred space. It's violating the sacred space. I call it energetic assault. Seriously, because that's the thing. Even when individuals' presence in there, it creates this energy. Because this is the thing. What if your very presence is that very trigger as to why they're there in the first place?
Yeah.
Why does that have to be pointed out? Why do we have to do this reverse stuff where it's like, well, you need to be inclusive and no. It's just like, we're talking about Black issues in here. What make you think it's okay to just sit in here? And are you getting off and listening about our suffering? Like, really, what is that about? What is that about?
Yeah.
Seriously. We got meetings out the yin yang. We can have a general meeting, but get out our space.
It's interesting that you say that because coming from Detroit and coming here, there's been so many times it's very pronounced as a space for Black folks or space for folks of color. And very much, there's always non-Black folks in the space or non-folks of color in the space. Even though the description says it's for Black people, we understand it. And I love that you said that it's an energetic assault to have the same people that cause harm in the space, because I think I have the same feeling about when we have affinity group spaces in the school cafeteria, in the same place that we've experienced assault, right? Where they like, oh, let's all come together from the district wide and have all the Black teachers come to this building. Well, how do you know that building is not the place where they've experienced a trigger, right? And so I'm glad that you're talking about that. And I love we're bringing that. I'm going to credit Jason on this, energetic assault. He said that's from his recipe book. So we know that, folks out there, if you hear it, that was his first. But I love that. I love that you're talking about that. When you're talking about racial battle fatigue and you're seeing it, and you talked about, this is your dissertation research. It started off, it sounds like, as me search, where it's all about your own experience. Having talked to other folks in community, what are they saying about their racialized experience and about racial battle fatigue that they've experienced?
Oh, it's interesting. So my theoretical framework I'm using is scholarly personal narrative. So it's basically like a form of urban ethnography in a way, but more centered in my story. I want to read this definition to kind of go into that part of what I've been experiencing as a Black man and being a Black therapist and being the first to just tell people, hey, yo, this is racial battle fatigue. You're not going crazy. You know, it may feel like you're going crazy. They may want you to believe that you're going crazy, but you got to reject that. You got to reject that stuff. Oh, and William Smith, you know William Smith.
I do.
Type of, I'm going to read something that I had cited out of his work. That says accumulated result of natural race-related stress responses to distress mental and emotional conditions. These conditions emerge from constantly facing racially dismissive, demeaning, insensitive, and or hostile racial environments and individuals. So to your question, and what I've been seeing, I had done a workshop for the state of Colorado some while ago. And it was so interesting talking about racial microaggressions and racial battle fatigue. The thing that I noticed is it's almost like the most well-known secret that a lot of Black people don't know, because they can't, you have to name it to tame it. If you can't name it, you can't tame it.
Wait, Jason, you've been sitting on my sessions, because that's what I talk about all the time.
Really?
And I started to cut you off, but the reason why I'm so passionate about speaking at conferences and being in community is because I want to support the language, getting the language out there, because like you said, people are crying in their car. They are resentful. They are smoking and drinking more. They are not treating their children the way they used to. They are lots of things, John Henryism, right? But they don't know the words, the language. You have to name it exactly what you said. And I say this when I speak, you have to be able to name your experience to then do something about it. I'm so glad you're saying that. I had to cut you off because I'm in 100% agreement about that.
Yeah, definitely. We got to name it to tame it. And there's many times very memorable looks on Black folks' faces while talking about these pieces. It's almost like man, they just looking and they just look shot out. Wow, like what you just described is something that I felt was undescribable because I was in it. I feel it. You know, it's the culture of this company really have to be intentional around putting guardrails around our culture, right? And, you know, and being trouble, even when we're in these corporations, like we still got to be on code. We still got to be on code. Serious.
Yeah.
And like what you said, we got to name it. That's a phrase I constantly use in here. There's a lot of Black men's first therapists, a lot of Black women too as well. And white people come see me too. And that's cool. You know, I'm about healing. Like, let's heal. But a lot of Black men come see me. And they're like, man, this is my first time coming up in here, man. I just gotta, and it's a language. Like what you said, it's a language. It's a lingo, right? You can't fake vibes. You can't fake the energy. You can't fake the frequency. You can't fake consciousness. You can't fake it.
Yeah.
Right? So with this topic, I see a lot of more Black people being a bit more curious. And as they name it in some of those workshops that I was doing, being able to be emotionally objective about it. Because that's the thing. We are very soulful. And we're the most soulful people walking around here.
Yeah.
Everybody want to be Black, so it's time to be Black. Everybody walking around hip hop out and all of this other stuff. And, you know, culture vulturing. That's what I call it. Culture vulturing, right? And we're the kings and queens walking around here. So when we name this stuff, I see a lot more Black people going, you know what? I knew something was up. And my definition of, you know, racism is designed to make you feel like you're going crazy.
Yeah.
It's designed that way. So I'm seeing a lot more Black people actually standing up and kind of going, no, something ain't right. And especially when you say racial battle fatigue, it's one of those things, even when you say it, if they don't know the exact definition, they know where you're coming from. They just kind of go.
Yeah. Jason, this is so many things are going through my mind. But this idea of people, you come into your workshop and you're presenting and you can physically feel a shift where they're like stunned, then they're processing, and then there's this energy of like, okay, then what's next? Right? Do you feel that in your workshops? Because I definitely this arc where when I'm starting and I'm like, any questions? And people are just processing all of their symptoms on a screen. Yeah. And I don't know. I know you said she spoke at the state of Colorado. A lot of the work that I do focuses on this in education, the K-12, a lot of K-12 folks and union folks and things like that. But it's very interesting because you're right. Once we see it, it's like, that's it. I'm so glad you're saying that. And can you read that definition one more time for us, please?
Yes. Cumulative result of a natural race-related stress response to distressing mental and emotional conditions. These conditions emerge from constantly facing racially dismissive, demeaning, insensitive, and or hostile racial environments and individuals.
Yeah. Hostile environments and individuals. Yes. I'm going to need to put that in the show notes. I'm going to need you to send that to me so I can put that in your show notes, because that definition I've not heard before from Dr. Smith. So I'm glad, because I've seen others that talk about the time taken out of your day to cope with experiencing racism that involve the physiological, psychological, emotional, behavioral responses that we have. And it really focused on all the time we spend processing through it, thinking about it, trying to push it down, can't sleep, rehearsing the situations in our mind. And so that's what I've heard, but I like that definition as well. And I'm sure that the audience would love to read more about that too.
Yeah, I'll send that to you. I'll just screenshot and send it to you.
Yeah, please do. So that being said, and we brought you on because of your skills as a therapist, can you tell us what are some ways that you, like, strategies that folks can use beyond therapy? Because therapy is number one, folks. Let's just hear that. But what are some strategies that folks can utilize at home with themselves, with their families, to cope with racial battle fatigue? Some things that you suggested to your clients.
Yeah. So definitely, get a Black therapist.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot spell spiritual without ritual. The way you wake up, what is the routine? If we get up and we shooting into our day like it's a track meet, right? It's not a good thing. So what I would say is one of the first things is, what is the root? We could call it a ritual. We could call it a habit. We could call it a routine, because I know some people kind of go, oh, is it? You know what I mean? But it really is. So what I would say is something to start off with. It's like, read something philosophical in the morning. And if you're a history buff, one book that I'm recently I got it in the car, African Myths and Legends, to know the true history, something to get your mind occupied. Because when we talk about racial battle fatigue, right, a lot of individuals take yesterday and today, right? You wake up and then, Lord forbid, you're in a toxic situation or a toxic, you come home, go from war to war.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, that's not, you know what I mean? So really, you got to have your sacred space. You got to have your sacred time, and you have to protect it. You have to protect it with reverence. You got to have emotional boundaries. So this goes both ways, even with racial battle fatigue, right? Because we're dealing with this stuff at work and then we come at home. This is supposed to be sacred space. I would also suggest like a prompt journal, that will prompt you to write something. Like one book that I'm looking at that I'm using right now is called For Empath and Healers. I don't know if this is going to be live, but if, people start buying that, she should be flooding me, plugging me or something. But anyway, no.
I cannot with you. He needs you to break him off with his coins. Come on now. Who's the author?
Actually, it's from it's a company called 21 Exercises.
Okay.
So it's not a specific person. They roll out different ones. This one is for empaths, for individuals that are empaths. I mean, it is very taxing. It's very taxing. You got to be able to do your cleanses. So, and also something that is not talked about as much, fragrances, right? A lot of people kind of go, man, get your mind right, you know what I mean? But it's just like, get your environment right. Get your vibration right. And one of my mottos is, when midnight hit, yesterday so long ago, every day is a new life. So you got to be able to foster things that are just for your spirit that you don't compromise on. Yes, there's some things you should not compromise on. For real.
Talk more about the fragrances.
Oh, yeah. So frankincense, myrrh, santos wood, sage, candles, even non-scented candles, lavender, right? Setting the environment. I mean, all of this stuff matters because what you hear it all the time. Well, I don't have time. I don't have time. Well, it's always been 24 hours in a day. You're not making time, right? You're not making time. I get it. There's stuff that
Making time for your healing.
and that's the thing you can't compromise on, for real. Maybe you have to put it on D&D in the morning if you know that some people call it and they're energy vampires. You know what I mean? You got to take care of your emotional equity in your life. You got to look at your relationships because you got to be able to protect that. And it's an emotional equity. It's like having a board and everybody wants to say something, but everybody doesn't have voting power, right? If you came here to just eat chips and drink pop or whatever you want to do and you don't have any voting rights, you're wasting your own time. That's how I view your emotional equity board, right? You got people that's in your life. You got your kids, you got your spouse, and when you go to work, that thing should be like a subset committee, right? Where you go, I go to work, I get the job done, I demand respect, right? I know my worth. And by the way, when I get up in the morning, it's about me. First things first, me first, right? Well, put God first, yeah. But this is the thing, this is how I feel. God dwells in me as me. So when I put myself first, I am putting God first. I'm one and the same. I can't convert. I'm already a God. I'm not saying that to be humorous or anything like that. This is my walk. So whenever I'm putting myself first, I am putting God first because God's in me and I am God in my life. So we got to be able to prioritize our emotional equity because we can sit here and talk about coping tools or when you go into work and, oh man, I could try to avoid and all this other stuff. But if you got your energetic armor on, what can they really do?
Yeah.
What can they really do? And document every damn thing, just in case it gets to that point. But that's the thing. That's why the rituals or the routines that you wake up with is just as important as your coping tools. That's why I'm saying ritual piece, because a lot of people, we have a lot of reactionary healing, like some shit got to fall. And it said, oh, I need to get a book. You should have been doing that. What you mean? So you got to go through a crazy breakup to start asking yourself, do I even know what love means? Now you want to pick up All About Love by Bell Hooks? Stop this reactionary healing stuff, right? Healing requires maintenance. It requires it. A lot of people go, oh, I'm healed. I'm never going to. Hey, every day is new. Every day is different at some point. So that's why I'm really, really echoing the importance of the rituals or routines or habits that you do when you wake up in the morning.
I want to pause you for a second. I find it so fascinating that when Dr. Smith came on the podcast, this had been 2 years ago, he essentially named exactly what you're naming. And when I talked in community about what he suggested, I have to point out to folks, and I'll point out to the audience now, that Jason is not telling you to go into your job and change the minds and hearts of people at your job.
Thank you.
Dr. Smith said this. Jason's saying the same thing. This is very much about you and about what you need for self. And it's not start a book club, start a committee, start a this and a that, and burn yourself up to try to convince people to see you as human. I had to pause you to say that because I think that so many people, Dr. Smith talked about picking your battles. So many people want to hurry up and hammer down everything at the expense of their mental health, their families, their emotional, and all the things. And so if you did not hear that episode, go back and listen to it. But Jason's saying the exact same thing. Get a Black therapist, rituals in the morning, journal prompting. Me first is God first. Smells and fragrances. And I have to say, my husband was going to Jason for a long time for therapy. He always come back with a few incense. I'm like, oh, Jason gave you some incense again, right? So like the smell, right? So basically having your space as a place of comfort and Black consciousness, looking at your relationships and evaluating your relationships. And I love this. We have to stop the reactionary healing, right? I think that so many people that I've talked to thought that they were the one, that racism couldn't happen to them at work, right? And it's just like, well, it couldn't fire me because I'm the head of blah, or I'm running this project. And then once everything falls down, they want to come and say, I can't believe they treated me like this. And then they want to, like you said, come into your office, right? And try to get all the tools when we should have been in therapy.
Thank you.
When we should have been reading. We should have been had our incense out. We should have been had our ritual. So I just had to pause there. And I really appreciate this. Is anything else you want to add? Because this is great.
Meditation. Meditation is like the soundtrack to God's voice within you. If you're talking, how are you really listening? Sometimes we have to quiet our minds in order to really go, man, where am I at? Can I reset and not have this energy exchange spillover? But yeah, that's the only thing that I would add to that piece. And I'm grateful that the way you point these pieces out and you lace them together, because by no means we're not here to change people's mind. So I really like that. Change people's mind as far as, when it comes to racial battle fatigue, like what Dr. Smith was saying. Don't go in there trying to change their minds. Say, hey, treat me better, or hey, let's have a better work environment. It's toxic on its own. And we cannot use toxic tools in order to bring healing. It's too much kicked up blood on it. It's too much kicked up negativity. That's a fool's paradise. That's a path to fool's paradise. It really is. That's chasing the wind. Focus on your spirit. Focus on yourself, right? Have things that you do not compromise on. I get it. We like to, all in the sunlight, but no, there's some things that, no, I'm not compromising on that. I'm not allowing you to come over here and put 3 things on my tally when you are the director. You don't want to pay me the things that you extended to me. And I get it. Some people say, hey, you can't really do that. You can't, but it's just like, hey, you got to have some boundaries. You got to be able to have some boundaries. You say, hey, look, that's another thing. And you know it too. We hear that all the time. They said, man, I'm doing regional director work. And this is getting put on me. And they're going, yeah, maybe we might give you a raise, maybe. Like, I'm actually doing your damn work. Like, we don't know that, right? That's disrespectful. There's got to be a different way to maneuver this stuff where it's like, yeah, I need to have a talk with this person. Why don't you respect me? Because I feel like you're putting this stuff on me. This is professional development. I don't need no more of that.
Right.
I'm not compromising on disrespectful energy. I'm not doing it. We got to meet in the middle of the bridge. So, yeah, like what you were echoing what Dr. Smith was saying, yeah, don't go in there and try to change people's minds. For what?
Yeah. I want to back up a little bit and ask you a question that I had not planned, but I think it's important to ask. The first thing that you mentioned was, and I mentioned too, is finding a Black therapist. And there are folks out there who are just leaning into the idea of therapy and then let alone finding a Black therapist, right? So what are some things that people can do to help them to know that they found the therapist that's right for them? Are there questions to ask? How do you know if it's a good fit as a person receiving therapy? What does that look like for folks?
It's interesting. I would say it's a vibration. It's a frequency. I mean, you ever just like met somebody and said, man, that person's cool. I kind of get that feeling. Then you met some people where you just like, yeah, I don't give a damn if I see them ever again.
Facts.
What's their name? Don't care.
Yes.
Don't care.
Yes.
So it's the energy thing. And some questions to ask that I would suggest is, ask what their modalities are. I know you can go to their website and things like that. Ask that. Ask those questions. And then also do your research, and this is the thing, you can tell a lot for how a person answers a question, right? Or another question that is a very good one to ask is what is your philosophy towards that you use in therapy? Or what's your go-to modality type of piece, go into that because, asking the therapist that, you'll be able to see kind of like, oh, this is some of my strategy. This is kind of where I'm going about this type of piece. But it's really an energetic thing. It really is because it's that connection piece. It really is. I mean, it really does matter. So that's one thing that I would say, do your research as you're doing that, right? And then also if somebody referred you, and they say, hey man, you need to go see a therapist, and you might already know why. Just like I'm shot out all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you go in, you just kind of go, even before you get to the therapist, and that person that referred you, right? And make to say, hey man, you're going through so much. I just think a therapist would be essential for you. Ask that person that referred you, what has therapy done? How some therapy has helped you over the years? Because typically, if somebody is not for therapy, I mean, they probably ain't handing out therapist referrals, right? And that'll be a way to build some rapport there to kind of go, man, because sometimes we got to get sick and tired of being tired.
Yeah.
In that coup de grace, man, it came where they just said, yep, I broke up with this lady. I keep choosing the same woman with a different name. I'm convinced I'm the problem.
Yeah.
You're the common denominator in all your problems.
Yeah. I think that's under that same vein of I broke up with different jobs, right?
Yeah, there it is.
And even if it is like racially motivated, not accepting that's what it is, right? So the same idea, yeah.
For real. So that would be some go-tos, with that piece.
Thank you.
And then look them up on LinkedIn, and then maybe ask a question about one thing or something like that. But it's typically, and this is the thing with a lot of individuals that's never been in therapy, more oftentimes, because I do all my screening, some people don't know. They just don't know. They just know, like, I just need help. All right, they're having an issue naming it. They're like, I'm having anxiety attacks. I don't know what to do about them. So they may not even be in that space. They'd be as inquisitive to see if like, oh, what's the fit? So that's why I say it's more of a vibrational thing, because
sure,
when they're being vulnerable like that, and that therapist is taking that moment to ask pivotal questions, where it's just like, hey, are you experiencing more manic depression or mania? Oh, I don't know what that is. Well, let me explain to you what the difference between these two. Oh, it sounds to me, for what you're talking about, is you have a lot of anxiety. Anxiety, the Latin root of that word before they assassinated that language, is anxiety means to choke out. That's why when a person's having an anxiety attack, it feels like they're drowning. Just as saying something like that, and I've had screenings with individuals before scheduling, I've had them, before we get off the phone, to say, man, you just lining that out really is making me excited to come and sit down, because to me, it's very scary. It does feel like I'm going to die because I can't breathe, but just being able to know what's going on with me. Like, what's going on? What is this called? Once again, like what you talked about and what we're talking about, we got to name it to tame it. And sometimes people just don't know.
Yeah.
They just don't know.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Since we're in this same vein, I would like you to please tell folks, first of all, are your books open? Can people even come and see you before I do all this? His eyebrows up.
Yeah, we can do it. We can do it.
So before I go into how to find this man, and then we say he's canceled out. So folks who are in the Denver area, do you do telehealth, or is it mostly in person?
I do telehealth.
Okay. So tell us how to find you, the name of your therapy practice, all the information about you, where they can find you on LinkedIn, because if you know nothing about Jason Shankle, he stays on LinkedIn with the resources. So give us all that information, please. Okay.
So I'll give you the rundown. So Inner Self and Wisdom, this is where I'm at right now in my office. So Inner Self, INNER, and then self, and then andwisdom.com. A lot of my resources are on there. The number to the site is 720-651-2556. That's the business line number. But typically then I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, a lot of those places. I'm on Patreon, A Moment with Jason Shankle. I put a lot of interviews and stuff up that I do with like Brother Jeff and quite a few other individuals and stuff. And then I have a nonprofit that I started that I'm looking to combat the racial battle fatigue, and also, other workshops, these healing workshops. And now my nonprofit is the Black and Mental Health and Wellness Coalition. So, and it's actually, getting a lot of steam. So a lot of workshops exploring nature in a way too, as well, with mental health and individuals and resources. Like what I said at the beginning of this call, put your money where your mouth is. I'm practicing this stuff. It's our responsibility to take care of our community, not onlookers.
Yeah.
That just doesn't work. And then I guess since we on that, addition to that, all right, so I'm an author. I was showing that lady's book. I'm going to show my book.
Yeah, show your book.
Yeah.
They can't see it because it's on but still tell us all about it.
Okay, cool. Okay.
What's it called?
So this is called Suffer Less, Meditations for Transforming Trauma into Healing. This is under my philosopher's name, Jay Shankle. And then my poet pen name is Black Azar. Now it's Black Azar, however, it just means Black God. And all of these are found on Amazon. My second one is Crowns of Shattered Dreams. And my first poetry book is Soul Searching Poetry. So, and that's the thing with reading and all these other pieces. Like, I am working on my first therapist book. That has been in the making ever since I began. So that's another way that I want to, bring a resource to the world where it's just like, hey, man, I'm working on myself and reading this book, and I'm actually healing instead of just being reactionary and just fixing things and putting duct tape on stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah. That's where I can be found. InnerSelfAndWisdom.com. I'm on LinkedIn, and it's evident my name is at the bottom of this interview, and it's evident y'all listening to it. So if you type in Jason Shankle Therapy or just Jason Shankle, I'm not hard to find on the internet.
Yeah.
Maybe outside, but
he said maybe I'm introverted a little bit, but not on these interwebs.
For real.
When we get back, I'm going to ask you a few more questions. Folks, hold on. And while we're on our break, maybe go find his website, maybe go get set up with an appointment or follow him on LinkedIn. We'll be right back. Hey there, beautiful people. It's me, Dr. Asia. Before we dive back into our conversation, I have something exciting to share with you. Are you a dedicated Black educator or support Black educators? Well, if so, we've got some great news for you. We're thrilled to introduce the latest addition to our podcast community, the Black Educator Be Well newsletter. It's a space dedicated to all things Black educator healing, wellness, and more. We believe that taking care of our Black educators is crucial, and this newsletter is designed to do just that. Picture this: exclusive insights into self-care practices tailored for Black educators, inspiring stories from fellow teachers who've overcome challenges, and tips for creating a positive and supportive environment at work and at home. Subscribers will get early access to our upcoming podcast episodes, special interviews with guests, and even some surprise giveaways. How do you become a part of this amazing community? It's easy. Go to exitinterviewpodcast.com or check out the link in this episode's show notes. Now let's get back to the conversation. All right, welcome back. So we're interviewing Jason Shankle. Jason has given us so much information about ways to combat racial battle fatigue. And I'm just so glad to have had him finally on the podcast, and the recording is working because I keep looking up to make sure the red light is on, because that is my fear. This is such great information. So we're wrapping up our show, and I'll ask you the questions that I ask all of the folks that come on. That first question is there a Black educator or educators that you would like to shout out?
Yes. Actually, 4 come to mind. And I'll go in the order as I met them. 2 of them I know you know very well. First one will be Miss Knight. That was one of my high school African-American teachers. She taught African-American history, and I was her assistant in there. And I've always had a reverence for Black truth and Black consciousness. So that was really cool that she had took a liking to me and said, hey, I'm going to make you my assistant. I was like, oh, okay. The next one will be Peggy Lyons. It might be your kid, though.
Maybe.
Yeah, Peggy Lyons it was out of HBCU. I never forget that, meeting her. She was the first one. She was actually my first college instructor. Like when I first came into zoology, it was my first class. Went there early, and I said, dang, I thought it was a different time. And this is in Tyler, Texas. And I remember as she was taking more of a liking to me, I remember when she is, she said, "You're an erudite." And I was kind of sitting there and said, "Damn, she calling me names. What's going on in here, man?" I said, "Damn, erudite. Huh. Okay, I don't know what that is. I hope it's good." What erudite means is someone that pursues knowledge with reverence, right? That's what an erudite is. Because she was talking to me. She said, "You're different. You're different. I can tell the way you answer questions is different." So Peggy Lyons, I've never forgot that word. The minute she told me that word, and at first I said, "Yeah." I said, "Wow, man, she assaulting me. What's going on? I don't know what's happening right now."
Yeah, that's
But,
real.
I'm like, whoa. Then the next two, Dr. Tuitt, Dr. Frank Tuitt. Man, so much respect for that man. And yeah, the work that he's done in me designing the Black Male Initiative Summit, doing the curriculum and things like that, that's where I met Dr. Frank Tuitt. And he was the one that approached me and said, "Have you thought about getting a doctorate? Have you thought about it?" I said, "No, not really." He said, "Man, you should think about it. There's resource stuff here. This great work that you're doing, So Dr. Frank Tuitt, yeah, solid dude. And then
solid.
the last person I will mention is Dr. William Cross. That's my guy as well with Dr. Tuitt. I had met Dr. Cross during some of the curriculum designing and development as well. So, by the second year, he had come in. And the first year, it was just awesome. And, my background is psychology. So, and they brought him in. They said, "Man, you got to take a look at this guy. You got to see what this dude's designing in prison. You got to take a look at this." Came, sat in there, just amazing stuff. I learned so much from them. But yeah, those four and those last two, oh my goodness, so supportive.
Yeah.
So much respect for all of them. But Dr. Frank and Dr. Cross, man, goodness. I learned so much from those men.
Yeah, thank you. I bet you have. Our next one is, and our final, what's been bringing you joy these days?
Traveling, my children, of course, nature, and my pen. I have been writing. I've been putting myself in intentional, peaceful, sacred spaces, not just falling in them and just going, "Oh yeah, this looks like a cool place to have a picnic or some craziness." No, I'm intentionally going out. I'm going, think I'm gonna go ahead and hike. While I'm hiking, I'm gonna take my vlogger camera on me, and then I'm just going to look at the sun and walk through these mountains and ask myself a question, be more curious. But yeah, I would say children, traveling, and my pen. I love to write. And, one thing I say is creativity is a symptom of healing. I really believe that. To be able to be in a creative space is the ultimate emotional freedom that I experience. And being able to make decisions professionally and personally and be able to travel as much as I do. Yeah. It's food for the soul. And going back to Africa before the end of the year, that's something I'm doing every year. I would suggest Black folks go back to Africa, learn a language, learn another language. There's so many languages, Black languages, or just another language, period. Get back to Africa.
Well, there you have it, folks. And I'm going to add to that list, peaceful, sacred spaces. I love putting myself there, not falling in them. And the travel, like all those, making it to that list that we talked about earlier. All right, folks. So Jason Shankle's been hanging out with us. That was beautiful. We thank you so much. Again, please go out and find a Black therapist. Jason's books are open, so you may be able to squeeze in there. And take care of yourselves, and we'll talk to you later. Peace. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. We hope that you've gained valuable perspectives and a deeper understanding of the conversation surrounding Black educator retention. As we conclude this episode, we encourage you to join our Patreon to support our work. Plus, as a patron, you receive bonus episodes, merch giveaways, and much more. Stay engaged with us on our social media, sign up for our newsletter in the show notes, take a look at our YouTube page, and interact with us on our website. Remember, the stories we've shared today are just the beginning, and your participation is vital for the future of education.